The following program is rated GE. It is suitable for general family viewing.
All right, we all know that human beings are creatures of mobility, and therefore it can be quite difficult if you're experiencing challenges. I mean, persons with disability will tell you that sometimes it's extremely difficult for them to move from point A to point B due to the difficulties that they get to encounter, on the road, trying to access movement and all that. And so, in our quest to just get to understand how best these people can get to be helped, because most of the times we deal with persons with disability, then we get to meet Dan. Dan is from ACE Mobility. ACE Mobility is there to ensure that they accord accessibility, reliability, and perhaps disabled-friendly rides that would help you in the event that you probably do not have your own car and you'd wish to move from point A to point B, either going to school, going to work, and so much more. So this episode of Beyond the Limit will be focusing on getting to understand just how technology and innovation is coming to make it easy for persons with disability to live life. My name is Linda Alela. Welcome on board. And as you can evidently see, we are somewhere, where Dan is, and of course we have one of his cars here that is going to tell us what it does and how then they come in handy to address these concerns. Of course, is it a conference or more or less like an exhibition that is ongoing here, different innovations and all that, but today allow us to focus on this particular one. ACE Mobility, Dan, thank you for having us. All right, salimia watu, even as you tell them, what it is that you do.
Nice, thank you very much for this particular opportunity. My name is Dan Kamau from ACE Mobility. We provide transport for persons with disabilities and also persons with reduced mobilities. That is the elderly, the sick, women, pregnant women, and basically anyone else who needs support as they are commuting or they are traveling from one point to the other. So our solution is last mile. We don't just bring someone into their destination. We walk them in and make sure they're in the right floor, the right room, so they can then get support from there. Our support goes even beyond what other drivers are doing. So we also come in with drivers who understand sign language in a case where you're transporting someone who is deaf. So some of our drivers understand sign language and they then get to communicate within that particular journey, and they help persons with disabilities. For the blind also, our drivers then come in as caregivers and they're able to be patient and direct persons with disabilities to where they are going. Within the journey itself, when you're transporting someone who is blind or visually impaired, we then get to give them description of what's happening around them, the buildings that you're seeing, whatever is just happening on the road. Even you just give them description of the other vehicles that are with you on the road, just so that they can get a feel of what they are unable to see.
And so that means you're more than drivers, you're actually caregivers in this particular case. I remember my times in campus, there was the introduction of tuk-tuks that were actually, introduced so that they would move around students who are having difficulty or lecturers that are having difficulty. But it looks like it's a whole different innovation and advancement into this. Perhaps one of its kind in the country. Tell us more about this.
So we'll say we're the first people to actually bring in accessible vehicles. So accessible vehicles are vehicles that are specially adapted to meet the transport needs of persons with disabilities. The adaptation could come in two different ways. What we have behind us is a vehicle with a ramp. So it might come, the ramp might come out from the back or from the side of the vehicle, depending how the vehicle is modified. And with the ramp, a person who is on a wheelchair is able to travel without them actually leaving their wheelchairs. So they get to travel while they're still seated or at the comfort of their wheelchair, which they are used to, to use on a day-to-day basis. For those who do not have wheelchairs, we are able to come in with ours and then help them for that particular commute. The second adaptation is a swivel seat, which is a seat that lifts the vehicle and lowers itself to the ground, so that someone who is on a wheelchair is then able to transfer from their wheelchair into this particular seat. And then now the seat lifts itself up and back into the vehicle. For that, a person with disability does not have to be lifted to be put into the vehicle. So we are bringing in a solution where persons with disabilities and generally persons with reduced mobilities are able to travel with dignity and independence.
How long have you been in existence? I am curious because then I'm thinking this is quite a good way to just help these people out? How well are you known? How far have you traversed across the country? How long have you been in existence and all that? Yeah.
So we started transport in 2020, where we started transporting health workers during the COVID period. Then we moved to transport for persons with disabilities. So we've been around for 3 years or so, and we're doing quite well in the market. We have last year we served 4 conferences that touched on disability. We do airport transfers and inter-hotel transfers. So we take in the whole aspect of transportation within a conference, and we serve both people with disabilities and people without disabilities. In terms of how well we are known, I would say we are vastly known with organizations that work with persons with disabilities, which has been the target market at first. And right now we are rolling out the solution with our new app, that is the S Mobility. We are rolling now out the solution out to everyone else. So once you download the app that is currently on Play Store and soon on iOS, you'll then get to use our service, and you can just request our service, and you can request an adapted vehicle just the way you request for any other car. So yes.
All right. Beyond the Limit is largely about us talking about beyond the limits, that you have this, something that someone would look at as a limitation, but all the same you're able to live life just like any other person. And therefore, what is this one thing? What is this need? What is this gap that you saw existing in the market, and you decided that perhaps this is the way to go? I mean, how much research was required to get into this for you to understand that this is actually going to suit the Kenyan market and even beyond, and will be accepted? Yeah.
I'll say this particular solution is not being implemented in the country. Yes. And we have more than 5 million persons with reduced mobilities. And even in Africa, we have more than 200 million persons who have disabilities, and the transport system within these particular countries are in no way adapted for the needs of persons with disabilities. Yeah. So for me, S Mobility is personal. My dad got into an accident when I was 6 years old, and he got spinal cord injury. And so he's been on a wheelchair since then. So I got to see the shift that came about our lives just because of that particular accident. It also led to his dismissal from work. So it really impacted us as a family, and that's why I grew up wanting to solve for not only him, but for everyone else who will then find themselves in this particular situation. You come to see that we have close to 13% of the world population that are born with disability, but right now we are getting close to 20% of the world's population with a disability. That then shows you that 7% is acquired disability. So it's not someone who is actually born with a disability, it's someone who acquires a disability.
Candidates.
Yes, they're all candidates.
Right.
And that then also means that we all have a 7% chance of acquiring a disability. And so for me, this particular solution is not a solution for those people. It's a solution for all, and for me and for everyone, because I also have a 7% chance of acquiring a disability. So it's a solution that should be embraced, everywhere, because again, we all have close to 7% chance of acquiring a disability, whether physical, whether hearing impairment, whether visual. We all have a 7% chance, and that is a statistic that is not actually out there. And now, once you start getting into the numbers, that's when you get to know the impact that these particular solutions will then have. Because solutions like this are not only for people with disabilities, they are solutions for everyone, right? Because what you're trying to bring in, for example, with the vehicle that is behind us, could easily transport 5 people plus a wheelchair user. So when you have a family member, you don't have to leave them at home when you're going for family gathering or if you're going for any other event. So you get to travel with them, and not, and they are not then supposed to travel by themselves. Because what normally happens is persons with disabilities are now forced, either they are left at home, or they are forced to be, to travel by themselves. So here's a solution where we will then travel together, bring them back into the community, bring them back into the society, which also really affects their mental health. Right now the government is actually pushing for 5% inclusion of persons with disabilities in employment, but then most of them are only getting virtual employment. So just because
they can't move around to the office, it's raining in the morning, someone does not have a car.
So that's how then we are coming in to solve for this particular problem. We are bringing in a coupled solution where we could have persons with disabilities, as long as they're traveling within the same route, we could pick each one of them and then have them in the same vehicle, and we drive them to work, and then also they're also now able to come back home.
And I know we've spoken to very many of them, but I'd love for you to perhaps just tell us, what is your experience with them, even as you tell them that, oh, we are now passing through University Way or via University Way, this is Nairobi University, and you almost paint that picture of them. Do they get to share their experiences in terms of the difficulties that they have had until maybe they met S Mobility?
I'd love to point out one particular case. So recently there was an award of Little Mr. Diversity where children with cerebral palsy were being crowned. And so the winner of that particular, so the first runners-up was a baby boy. He's 13 years old and he has severe cerebral palsy. And so the mom had not traveled with him for close to 13 years. Because when they do, they have to use public transport, but then the baby Bahati is quite tall. And so when he's being carried by the mother, he tends to, they'll have to have someone else here, and the baby tends to stretch his legs, and then the baby then needs extra support when traveling. And so the mother finds it very difficult because those seated next to him, they do not want, a child placing his legs on them, right? And all that comes with traveling with a person with disability. So at that point, they needed extra support. So we learned about this particular challenge when they had celebrated the birthday of Bahati, and then when they wanted to go home, all the cabs that they were requesting, none of them would accept them. Immediately they saw baby Bahati. They even tried a solution where the mother went into the vehicle first, and then the child was brought by a friend, but then the driver was like, oh no, I was okay to carry you, but if you have a child with disability, kindly just exit my vehicle. And so they had to walk all the way from Bomblast to Kencom. And so imagine carrying a 13-year-old boy on your back. Then once you get to the bus, it still has stairs. So you have to have extra support to even bring the child in. And then now you're seated and the child is still tall, and he can't actually fit in that particular row. And it becomes very tiring even for the parent to move with the child. So on that particular case and on that particular day, the mother really expressed gratitude for our service because he was able, or rather she was able to travel with Bahati. And he was very comfortable. He actually didn't cry, which had not been the solution and the impact before. And so those are the cases that we are looking for, and this is why we do what we do. Last weekend there was a race where wheelchair users were running, and even people were invited to run for a course where they will get treatment for spinal cord injuries. Yes. And so in that particular day, there was one wheelchair user who we met actually there, but he had actually gone there alone. So, but you see, for him to participate on that particular race, he needed extra support. And that's where now our extra support then comes in. So we are not just drivers. Once we get there, we make sure you're comfortable. So I personally got to run with him, went through the whole circuit twice, actually 3 times with him. And he was very grateful. At the end of the day, he was like, thank you very much. I had come in to run alone, but you have now provided company for me. And I really love that. He was able to even do much more than he actually expected.
All right. I can imagine the situation for them in this moment of the rains. But story after this short break. This gentleman I got to meet while, of course, he was working. And I can tell you for free, the kind of support got me thinking, is this one a driver? Or maybe he's just not working, he's just helping this person or anything. Only to realize that indeed, yes, he is doing this, driving these people around, but of importance, part and parcel of their life. Literally walking them through the journey and making it comfortable for them. Isn't that beautiful? Allow us to take a short break, and then we come back and get to hear some more about ACE after this break. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Limit, and the guest this evening is none other than Dan of ACE Mobility. As I had earlier mentioned, the idea here is to make sure that we also make life easy for persons living with disability, in the sense that they accord them that element of mobility, the power to move, the power to work, the power to live life, just like any other. Dan, before we take a short break, I was just thinking, with all this rain, and now the persons with disability. I also remember the struggles that we once had, with Nairobi County, figuring out how maybe matatus are not going to get into the town. And the questions were, what happens to persons with disability? I mean, it must be very difficult.
Yes, right now as it is, persons with disabilities are taking up to 3 hours just to get a public transport, that meets their needs, or even a driver who is patient enough to wait for them, and even a conductor then who is willing to get and to make that extra support to actually maybe lift them from their seats to get them into the vehicle and actually fold their wheelchair. And that's and that's a very big challenge. Then also now have to come in and pay 3 times the cost. So even with waiting for 3 hours, you still have to pay 3 times the cost. You'll have to pay for yourself, you'll have to pay for your caregiver if you have one, and you'll have now to pay for the assisted device that you have. Again, if it's raining, most, especially the 14-seater matatus, they fold their wheelchair and put it in the roof. But then if it's rained on, especially then if it's electric, then you have destroyed the whole system. And then that you then start incurring other costs of repairs and whatnot. So it's very challenging for people with disabilities. When you look at even different types of disabilities, where you have deaf people, for example, they're unable to communicate the fare with the conductor and they don't know how much is supposed to be paid. So then the conductor sees or rather thinks that this particular person is arrogant or is ignoring them. Last year we had a case where a lady was actually thrown out of a moving vehicle just because they couldn't converse with the conductor, because now she was unable to ask how much the fare is, and the conductor then thinks this person is actually ignoring them. Yes. For visual impaired people, so you maybe even when they were at the stage, they get to say maybe drop me off at archives, drop me off at this and this place, but then the conductor forgets.
And they can't see.
Yes, and they can't see. So they are dropped off and then they think, actually now I've arrived. So they start using their white cane to just look for directions, but they're in the wrong place.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, just how many people do you cater for in this? Because then I would only assume, looking at this, and if you were with us from the beginning, you would notice that we have shifted gears a bit, position, so that we can get to understand how then this vehicle functions. And so my assumption would have been, maybe this is just meant for the persons with wheelchairs, maybe persons who cannot move or anything. But I realize you cover quite a huge...
Yes, so for us the idea is to bring them back into the society. So for this particular vehicle, you are able to carry 6 people, right?
6, okay.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we could actually be talking as we see how
so let me just demonstrate without the wheelchairs, and then rather let me just bring in the wheelchair to show you how it works. Okay. So you start by lowering this particular point, which is the entrance, and then we get to, so we'll assume that you're actually carrying a passenger with us here today. And then you get to push the wheelchair into the vehicle, and then we'll have to fasten it.
So it has some belts.
It has some belts.
You want to call it the seat belt of this particular one.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're actually seat belts for the seat itself.
Okay.
So, and this is how we do it.
So it can accommodate as big, or there are certain standard sizes of wheelchairs?
It can, yes. So there are different sizes of wheelchairs, but then the good thing with this particular ramp, it is able to carry up to 200 kgs.
Okay.
So it's very
beautiful.
Yes, and that's how we handle the wheelchair. Then you fasten the belts so that then the wheelchair won't, move. Right now.
Nice, it's fun, eh?
Then now you get your safety belt.
Do you want me to sit on it?
You could definitely have a seat.
Can I?
Yes.
All right. Oh man, here we go. Oh, but I hope I'm safe 100%, eh? Like that.
So then here's your safety belt.
Like that. So then I should be comfortable and back.
Yes.
Okay.
So once you make sure that the passenger is comfortable, you close the door and you take your ride. Ni kama wewe ni mrefu sana but tutashare. Acha tuone.
Nina maybe. Okay, there you go. Yes, I'm quite a tall one, yeah? But it's basically something like that, right? Ew, nice.
Sasa unaweza inua kichwa.
Okay.
Unasukuma on one side.
Which is fine too. So it's basically something like that. Then it goes away.
So yeah, and you get to travel with us. One thing that you'll then get to note is that the roof is elevated, so that even someone who is tall is now able to commute with us. Yes, so that is why it has sort of a taller or longer roof. Yes.
Okay, so then you have the other people on the other seats, yeah? Beautiful. Okay. Ooh. as well. Coming out is as seamless and simple and easy. That means a struggle. You know, I have spoken to one Salome who was just trying to tell us the difficulty that she goes through. At least she is driving, but I'm telling you, she was telling me by the time I got to driving, my goodness, I had faced it. Including you're in the car alone again up until now, then whom will help you get out the wheelchair, and also you have to call the askaris around to help you come out, which is also not so comfortable, and not many of them would be willing to do that. Oh, I still have my...
You still have your safety belt.
Okay. So we said this is... Okay. We said this has a capacity of how many people?
This is able to transport 5 people.
And probably more if you are dealing with,
yes,
with maybe say people who have other disability cases, not this one in particular. Okay. All right, so I am curious to understand, even as we get to understand some more about the car and how you're going to show us the fittings and all that, just how well embraced is this in the country? And when you're talking about 3 years of operation, I mean, how are people accepting this? You know, especially that disability community, in terms of the kind of help that they get out of it.
So the solution is well embraced by persons with disabilities in the country right now. So what we are working on is on the affordability bit. So the measures we are taking to make the solution more affordable is using, for example, a hybrid vehicle. So this is a hybrid vehicle. This then means the fuel that it consumes is not as much as a non-hybrid vehicle. So that is one solution we are looking at. Also, the second thing we are looking at is the carpooling solution. You don't have to hire the whole vehicle, just transport one person. We are looking at a solution whereby we could have different people, as long as they're moving in the same direction, they then carpool and use the same vehicle, and then have one driver as the caregiver, who then, gets to help them in that particular journey. Also, we are looking at now getting subsidies. So we are looking for partners to help us subsidize the whole transport cost.
Yeah, because then that must be expensive somehow.
Yes. So we are looking for partners to help us subsidize the cost and make it now more affordable for persons with disabilities. And that's how we are definitely doing it in the country.
So whom do you work with? Individuals, corporates, would you say schools and everything as of now?
As at right now, we are working with organizations that serve persons with disabilities. We are working with companies employing persons with disabilities, and then we are now working with hospitals for hospital transfers, for even people who are going in for appointments, whether they are having their plasters removed and whatnot. So we are coming in to work with them, and also we are working now with people with reduced mobility, that is the sick, the elderly, and persons with disabilities themselves. So those are the people we are working with, but we are looking at making more partnerships and to making this particular solution available not only in Nairobi but everywhere else within the country.
Say the shipping process of these specific cars and everything. I know innovation and technology is coming in handy in a huge way. Perhaps when you started, you never had this kind of car. Maybe you were just using the usual kawaida car. Just how important is this? And I mean, how different can it and easy can it be made for you people who are offering the services in the country? Because I can imagine the taxes and all that.
Yes. So in terms of sourcing these adapted vehicles, right at the moment we're having to import from Japan. Now vehicles that are already adapted, which then takes a lot of time before identifying a vehicle, as just making the payment and now sourcing it into the country. But then also we are having to work with the taxes that we have to pay for the vehicles, the vehicle import tax. So unfortunately, tax exemption is only for people with disabilities. And so for companies that are serving persons with disabilities who do not have that particular exemption, and which will then come in a very long way in making even the service affordable. So we are, we would like to plead to the government to give us also tax exemption, because there's vehicles that we are importing, as everyone can see, they are vehicles that are meant to support persons with disabilities. This particular challenge, even for commuters, even within schools and universities, they are all of them, are coming to us and asking how then do we make this particular solution available for us. Also, we're looking to start adapting these particular vehicles locally. Instead of having to import already adapted vehicles, we're looking at now
how they can be fitted in.
How they can then be fitted locally. So, and also our services are accessible through our app. So the app is Ace Mobility, available in Play Store and soon on Apple Store.
Okay, say I am a person with disability and I have my own car, and therefore I want to be using my car here and there. Could I reach out to you for a driver or something?
Yes. So we train all our drivers on disability etiquette and how to serve persons with disabilities. And yes, you could definitely call us, and we'll then send you a driver to help you with your commute. Also, we train even other drivers for public transport, for the other online apps. We train them on disability etiquette and then how they should serve persons with disability.
Beautiful, beautiful solution that you're giving out here. And I think that is our business, to make sure that, of course, we are not limited by our limitations, that we can move beyond the limits and live life just like any other person. Thank you so much.
Yes, and if we are to talk about the future, we should have AI sign language interpretation within the vehicle, where even the deaf now are able to talk with the driver. The driver doesn't necessarily have to understand sign language. We are now looking to adapting AI to help us have the vehicle with sign language interpretation, also with route, what we will then have voice description of the surroundings. So the driver will give you some description of what is happening in the surrounding, but also now we're looking at adapting AI to give us voiceover for the
yes, for that, because it actually makes it easy for the driver to concentrate on the road,
yes,
but at the same time these people are getting the service that they require. Beautiful. We can talk until the cows come back home, but at least you have a gist or an understanding of basically what Ace Mobility does and just how life can be easy for you and me. Remember that we are 7%. We have 7% capability of acquiring a disability. So please, some of these shows that we actually host are not for persons with disability, but for all of us. If you have a way of making sure that life is easy for that next person, please do that, even as you just take care. Thank you so much for always keeping it TV 47 and beyond the limit. It's at this point that we close this episode, and I look forward to see you again next Saturday. Do have yourself a lovely, lovely weekend. Thank you so much once again, Dan.